All right. Hope everyone learned a lot from that 10 experiments before you die. I'm going to talk to these great people on stage with me. So I'm going to let them introduce themselves first before I introduce myself.
Hi, I'm Meera. I'm a product manager at Mirage, formerly known as Captions. We're like a short form video company. And so we help you generate or edit short form video, full with like avatar generation or, AI editing. I guess that was it. Yeah.
Hi, I'm Heather. I am a product manager at Squarespace. Specifically, I'm the product manager for backend platform at Squarespace. And one of the products in my portfolio when I joined was our homegrown experimentation platform that we replaced with Statsig.
Cool. Hi, everyone. My name is Andy Nahman. I lead the data science team at Character.ai. Character is a conversational AI chat platform. It's a UGC platform with hundreds of millions of characters that the community interacts with through text, audio, video, image modalities.
It's great to see two other PMs on stage with me. I'm also a PM. I'm a product manager at Statsig, but still love you, Andy. I have a data engineering background, so data science, data engineering. Very good to have all of everyone on board. I lead product management for Statsig's enterprise team. I've been with the company for a few months now, but like I said, my previous background was at Snowflake and Azure Storage. And my panelists on stage, I want to ask a little bit more on where does experimentation sit within your company? Like, who are the teams that are using it? Who's really championing it inside of your respective companies?
I would say experimentation is owned by our data scientists, but we only have 2 data scientists, and so it's truly owned by like everyone. We are an extremely like data-driven company, and so like from the nascency of the company, like everything has always been released as a gate or an experiment or tested in some way, and so both engineers, data scientists, product managers, all the way up to our CEO and even design team, like they are aware of our experiments, aware of every gate that's rolling out, and like everybody kind of owns that release process and like experiment design.
At Squarespace, honestly pretty similar. So I am the PM that owns the implementation with Statsig, and ironically, we're like some of the lowest A/B testers in the company because we own a lot of internal features that don't get publicly A/B tested. But basically everything that is a customer-facing feature is at least harm tested, rolled out, and measured, and it's pretty important to the way we do product development at Squarespace. So we also have a very dedicated analytics team, the product and insight analytics group. Some of them are here, and they direct and make sure that we are doing our experiments the right way and implementing everything correctly.
Cool. Character's pretty similar to both, I think. Experimentation is foundational to how the company's operated since it started. The DS team plays sort of the role of stewards, thought partners. We help, kind of manage the platform day to day and design and run experiments, but it's pretty democratized across the organization.
Yeah, it's great to see so many different personas using experimentation. Like at Statsig, we have data scientists, engineers, PMs, marketers, all using our platform. And before I joined Statsig, I wasn't really doing a lot of experimentation. Like I was mostly on the back-end infra side, so we would run some like A/B tests, and that would be it. But since joining Statsig, it's just been amazing to see how many different companies, like the ones that we have on stage, and other ones, like how many experiments they run. Last night, I posted a LinkedIn post just detailing the scale of Atlassian's experimentation journey with Statsig. Like as builders, we know how important Atlassian's products are for collaboration and software development lifecycle. And 2 years ago, they were running like 8 experiments, and then they went to 70, and now they're running like 1880. So that's like a 38x increase in 2 years. So I want to ask, like, what's the scale of experiments that you're running at your companies? What type of experiments are you running? How many experiments? How many users are you targeting?
You guys know off the top of your head?
Is my Statsig rep here? Because I think we're over our limit. Looking for some extra experiments. We've run probably about, 750 year to date. Pretty much everything that goes out either through an experiment or feature gate across the board.
At Statsig, Squarespace is where I work. We are around 200 tests this year. In terms of feature gates, we're around 1,300. I did the math today. We have 91 pages of feature gates. Yeah.
I'm trying to do the math here. I don't know the number off the top of my head, but I would say every engineer is launching a couple of tests every 2 weeks. So you can do the math yourself. But yes, like it's very similar to Character where everything down to a code refactor or like a package upgrade, like all these little things, like we also kind of gate that. We use like the feature gates at Statsig, but we still gate that, mainly as a kill switch. And so literally everything from like all the way back to, backend changes, ML upgrades, like client changes, design changes, everything is gated. Typically like an A/B gate and just like as a feature, measured rollout.
All right, that's a lot of experiments and gates. I think we have to show you our like MCP tool that does stale gate cleanup. You might need some of that. All right. So I guess what kind of experiments are you running? Like what is worth testing? How long do you determine to run the experiment for? And then what happens after you run the experiment? Do you do reviews of the metrics with a set team before you roll that out? Or tell me a little bit more about that experimentation process.
Yeah, I guess similar to what I said is we do gate everything, and so everything is truly experimented. And the thinking behind that is one, anything that can touch an end user, anything that will affect the top line, or then anything also in the middle that will affect critical pathways. So any code that will affect a critical pathway. That is the guidelines or the rules that we try to follow, and I would say we're maybe 90% there. And in terms of the process, we've started something recently, which I think has been really great for our experimentation process, which is we have weekly business reviews, which is not uncommon, but we've changed it to focus on the look back for the last week, which means it's truly experimentation driven. And so it's mainly on the data team to come up with what are the experiments that are running that are at they've been running for long enough, or they're at a point that we should be looking at it. And I mean, there are probably 20 to 30 people in the room because it's a cross-functional business review. And so everybody is aware of what are the different changes that we are running, what are the different quality improvements, feature gates, whatever it is that have impacted our end user. And so it's great to, everyone up from the CEO down to all of us ICs are, in that room, and we're aware of the discussion happening around this gate, what our CEO thinks of it, and what are the next steps from it. So that's really helped to democratize the value of data. And then there was one other question to that, but I'm forgetting. But yeah, so it's a critical part of our process right now, and everything is truly gated.
At Squarespace, we're a bigger company. It's kind of individualized per test, I would say, exactly what it is we want to measure, and what metrics we're targeting. Also, what means go or no go for it. Every test that we roll out has its do no harm metrics laid out ahead of time. So we know whether to pull the plug early on something, and then there's period of time for it. But it's usually up to the individual team whether we make a decision based on that, depending on how the test goes.
Cool. Yeah, I mean, we're running tests across a lot of server, backend tests, and then product UI testing. We actually have a pretty similar cadence to Mirage, it sounds like. We have 2 meetings. We do a learnings review that's focused entirely on experiment readouts. Try to make it actionable, go, no go through the, evaluation framework. And then we do a metrics review separately. But for us, it's really like there's model server experimentation that's focused on, the generations that users are seeing versus the backend infra. And so like each of those get very different audiences and focus, but everything's running through Statsig.
Actually, the last thing I'll add, which was like very different at a startup than like in big tech, was yes, we look at when the experiment duration has been met, or then you look at the metrics, or if there's a critical reason to roll back, you also like roll back then and like make a decision. But the third occurrence or third scenario at which we make a decision on an experiment is like if there's a strategic reason to want to roll this out faster. And like we have made that a lot of the times. I think a lot of startups make that decision where like you don't have enough sample size to like make a data-driven decision, but you're okay taking that bet, and then you figure out what are the other metrics or what is another way you can measure like 1 or 2 weeks later, 1 month down the line, like what was the actual impact of it. So I think that's a large difference that we've encountered.
So I think Mirage and Character.ai are both similar in age to Statsig, like roughly 4 years. So it's very much post-COVID, high-speed, AI native. And I'm sure we're like all 4 of us, we're all building with AI. How does building with AI change your concept of experimentation? Are you using experimentation a lot with your AI generated code, or using AI evals? Can you talk a little bit more about like the impact of AI and how experimentation fits into that?
Yeah, foundationally, Character has evolved quite a bit since even when I joined a year and a half ago. Character was started by ML researchers in pursuit of AGI. Where we are today is a entertainment generative AI platform. We don't have a pre-training team. We don't build our own model anymore. So how we've thought about experimentation has really changed from online evals of our post-trained models to now it's around really understanding mixtures of models and open source and multimodal. And so like how we think about where in the stack we're testing and applying the different tools has changed quite a bit. In terms of in terms of AI tooling directly, we're playing around with a lot of the MCP stuff and other kind of metric stores and ways to use all these tools in harmony. But it's still pretty nascent, I think, in terms of reliable, trusted tooling.
I would say it's 2 things actually. One is we are also like a just AI product, and one thing that we've been trying to explore is everybody understands AI now to be like a chat to do something, right? So you can type in whatever you want and you'll get what you want out of it, and so that's something we've been exploring of like bringing like the chat to edit, chat to video creation to like the video space, and that kind of leads me into the larger picture, which is the customers that we are trying to cater to, similar to Character, is like it's a new industry, right? Like it's new for the technology builders, but it's also very new for the consumers. Like they have learned how to use ChatGPT, which is like, okay, ask a question, I get a text response back. But bringing AI to like other industries, I think is very hard, especially in industries, say like the marketing space, like the creative space. Like these are larger and harder to move industries, and for some reasons, for legit reasons, they might not be willing to adopt AI in certain manners. And so it's one about like finding the right way to like integrate with that industry in a way that they would be willing, open to it, and also 2, truly just convincing them that it is, a great tool for them, and it fits into their workflow. And so I think that is a struggle that we definitely have on the, more B2B side or the prosumer side, which is like they have to see the value, but also we have to try different tactics in selling it to them and try different tactics on the product side and like building an experience that they can adopt themselves to.
And Heather, I have a question for you and Squarespace. Big fan of Squarespace. I'm pretty sure I applied for an internship there like way back in the day.
Someone should be getting back to you soon.
Okay. Hopefully AI did not filter out my resume from like 12 years ago, maybe. I don't know. But Squarespace is such an awesome company. It's being used by tons of people, and they trust you to host their websites and build their websites. How do you make sure, like when you're running these experiments, you're not overfitting to one segment? Like you might be creating a new experiment for onboarding or churn risk, and it's for a specific set of users, how do you make sure that it works for that set of users but doesn't decrease another metric somewhere else? Like, can you tell me a little bit more about that?
Yeah, it's really about the metrics, and our product analytics team does a really great job of giving us a good library of metrics to rely on. So, we have our North Star goals like revenue. That's what we're always tracking toward for everyone, but every feature that you ship could impact a dozen different things really differently. So it's about setting it up ahead of time, knowing exactly what it is you're testing, and then knowing what things, are counter metrics that you would be watching out for in case something might go bad. Again, those do no harm metrics. And then also, looking at other things that you want to watch just to observe as a test is going on. But as long as you know what you're measuring, then you can sort of get a holistic picture.
Awesome. And Meera, earlier you mentioned kill switches, which I think, of course, is very important when you're running any experiment or when you have a feature flag. For Mirage and captions in the video generation and AI space, trust and safety is huge. How do you design experiments with kill switches and safety and reliability built in?
Yeah, similar to what I said before, which is it's kind of like onboarding users to a very new experience that they might not be aware of. And about the trust part, like we inherently captions the iOS app like it's a video editing app. Like you added captions, but also it's a full-on video editor. So we have very traditional video editors, but we are trying to push AI onto them. And so we also like have a decent amount of traffic, which are like the AI users. It's people who like don't know how to edit video, don't want to edit a video, and like we are building all of these services for them. And so one thing that we use a lot actually is like the targeting rules in Statsig, which we first, if it's a large net new feature, there are two ways to test it. One is kind of expose it in a lower traffic area, and then that way you kind of get the more power users or like more intentful users down that path, and you can kind of like measure its efficacy by itself. Or the second thing is, if it is in the high traffic area, we first test it on new users. And so we use the targeting rules from Statsig to like first just roll this out to new users, and that allows us to like see the value of that feature by itself. And then separately, we can roll this out slowly for existing users, because that they're gonna have like a novelty effect in some way. Like they have to also the experience change on them, and so the reaction, like their impact in the experiment would be very tainted because of their previous exposure to the product. So that is something we use a ton, which is get a cleaner read on what the feature value is, and then improve it then, and then maybe tweak it to then bring it to existing users.
Thank you. And Andy, question for you, since you're on, you lead data science at Character.ai. Traditional KPI metrics, those are all useful, but when you're doing conversational chatbots, there's other metrics that you're probably looking at. How do you define those, and how do you set up the data strategy? Or is Character.ai using Statsig Cloud or warehouse native? Tell me a little bit more about the data strategy and metrics.
Good question. We're on warehouse native, which makes it much easier for us to develop extremely nuanced metrics. For us, Character is a little unique than most of the AI labs out there, in that hallucinations are sort of a positive for our platform, within reason, I think. But it's a creative storytelling platform, and so there's no objective right or wrong answer or truth. And so we really listen to our users as much as we can. Online A/B is usually the last step from our approach, because safety is paramount in everything we put out there. So we do a lot of offline evals as well as red teaming. And then in product, we leverage annotations heavily. So users can pill, categorical responses or descriptions around messages, which we use heavily in A/B to understand what user sentiment is. But generally, we try to target as few a number of users as we need to minimize exposure until we have utmost confidence that it's a great experience that users are enjoying.
Yeah, talked so much about annotations, evals. I should have you at the AI evals booth that I'm demoing at. Let's just have you talking with me. Yeah, it'll help to have two people like cover the crowd. Cool. All right. So, question for everyone in the audience on stage here. Tell me about like the most impactful experiment that you've run. Like, what was the configuration? Was it an A/B test, multi-arm banded? What was like the business impact, if you could share that?
I think two come to mind only because the first one is a paywall test. We optimize the heck out of like pricing and paywalls because I mean there's a lot to like get out of that. And so one thing that we ran recently is kind of like a double paywall test. We have like a discount code, like we have a one-time offer, and so that is, you know, one paywall to users, and the second paywall is the classic paywall with all the subscription plans. And we also have multiple subscription tiers, and so both want users onto like a middle level tier, but also we want like lower tier users to upgrade to higher tier plans. And so we've optimized a ton on when, at you know, what points should we show the paywall, and at what points should we show a double paywall, and in what order should we show those paywalls, right? So when there is like a pricing difference, and also one of them is, you know, lower price for like 1 month, a 1 month one-time offer, and then, you know, next month it bumps you up to a higher price. There is like the psychology of like people are anchored on the first price they see, and then like based on then, you know, they might be more or less willing to like convert on the second price they see if it's, you know, higher or lower, right? And so based on which paywall we show when, we kind of flip the ordering of that. We saw very high gains in that. The second test, just briefly, is more on the Gen AI front, which, you know, in the video editing tool that we have right now, like we have all the different models across like image generation, video generation, music, sound, etc. And so you can add in like an image overlay if you want, or like a video if you want. And so like a traditional video editor, the default option was add an image from your camera roll or a video from your camera roll. And we switched that UI to be kind of Gen AI focused. And I mean, the risk in that is similar to the question before, which is like, how do you not hurt your existing more traditional users while also like serving up a, you know, more modern flow for like, you know, the other users? And I think we like found this, we also iterate on that page a lot, and we like found the sweet spot, which, you know, it increased a bunch of users upgrading from the lower tier to the higher tier because they needed that to use this feature. And it also didn't hurt our existing users where like they had a big enough entry point into like the old flow. So those were two like really great tests, more in line with like the Gen AI evolution.
Awesome.
All right. Yeah. So one that comes to mind, and I'm going back a few years here, but I think it was really an impactful test for like the history of Squarespace, was our Blink template test. So our conversion team at the time was really struggling to, you know, move any metrics in conversion. They just seemed really inelastic. And one of the things that they, you know, observed as user behavior, that was the way that you entered the product, was, you know, you would sign up for your free trial of Squarespace, then you land in our template store and you choose a website template, and you would then go from there into building your website and becoming a Squarespace customer and doing your dream and all of that. But the hypothesis was, what if we gave people the option of just starting with a completely blank template and let them choose what they wanted? And so the test itself had these really surprising results. And it moved metrics a lot, but in a way that they were divergent from one another. So more people were starting free trials with a blank template, but the same number less of them were converting. So it was just kind of like this really, and normally those metrics track together. So it was really interesting. We could tell that like we were onto something, that clearly users are looking for a lower barrier to entry. They don't want to have to make a decision that feels so permanent so early in their website building journey. But, you know, the blank template wasn't it. But the blank template was kind of a cheap way to find out, you know, how to move this metric. So that kicked off like a whole series of tests. And Squarespace is still like, the conversion and growth teams are still very much working on this. But that's what led us into our current like AI onboarding experience of using, we call it Blueprint AI, where, instead of, you can still go to a template if you want to that's been pre-built for you. But most of our new people who are coming to Squarespace and starting a website, use our AI guided onboarding to get a few things and then start a website that's, with a custom template that's been made directly for them. And that was the first insight in many, many tests along the way that got us there.
Cool. I'll be quick with mine. I'll try. I talked a little bit about the journey of Character from developing our own models to open source. This is probably the most impactful A/B outcome we've seen, but a recent investment has been figuring out how do we move off of our aging model. Like, obviously, the field is developing very quickly. There's incredible open source models. We wanted to figure out a way to serve those models to our users. And so the interesting trade-off here is that our model that we've trained ourselves is very cost efficient to serve. Inference is very expensive. These open source models, while incredible, are very expensive. And so the trade-off of serving all of our users open source is not viable for cost structures. So we ran a couple very interesting tests around interspersing open source model generation with our model. And we ran probably 10 to 15 different variants of this, of 1 in 5 messages, 1 in 3, 1 in 2. And we've ended up in an incredible state where costs are slightly higher, but we've driven double-digit lift in engagement metrics and daily single-digit improvements in daily retention, like insane numbers that you don't often see from a test. So that's been really exciting. Couldn't have done it without Statsig.
That's awesome. So on my LinkedIn post that I posted yesterday about Atlassian Scale, I talk about many of the same concepts and themes that we've heard from the panelists on stage. Is like you should gate every change that is customer facing, and then you run an experiment to see what works, what are our users resonating with, and then analyze that data, analyze your metrics, find out why, find out what, and ship and iterate that. If you had to give the audience some best practices in your philosophy, like what are some takeaways that they should come out of this panel with? Like what should they be looking at when they're doing experiments? What are some best practices? What are some anti-patterns?
I can start. I love holdouts and backtests. I think they can become quite arduous for the engineering team to maintain, but are invaluable in understanding long-term effects of changes. So if you're not doing them, or engineering team doesn't want to, we can talk about how to convince them. But like holdouts are really powerful. So I want to talk to whoever was laughing.
I think
I've been there.
I think us as PMs, we could always use a little bit more insight on how you can encourage them to do things.
It's all about incentives.
Incentives, all right.
I'm advocating for holdout right now. So, I would say, obviously, there are a lot of good experiment practices, best practices, like come up with your hypotheses, and then from those you should come up with the metrics, and that should all backtrack to like having the right goal for the feature, so it just all seamlessly works. But I think one thing we could all optimize against, and something that I've been learning a lot right now, especially at a startup, is like, how do you find more and more winning tests, right? And so what is the best way to scope down a feature, whether it's by purely what the feature is, or where you surface it, like what is the traffic to this feature, what is a different way to design the experiment, what is a different way to design the feature itself, and cut scope in certain ways so that you have like a really, really clean test, and it's also small enough that you can run faster, and then you get like the results quicker, and you can iterate based off of that. And so it's both like helps you move faster and get an answer quicker, and I think by more answers and just more volume of tests, you can like be smarter and come up with more winning tests. And I think I would say that's kind of like our measure of success also for like our experimentation process, which is how many of the tests that we're running are having the positive result in the direction that we have hypothesized it would for the key metrics that you want to move.
All right, I'm going to be trite with mine. When in doubt, flag it.
Okay, pretty good. All right, I guess I don't want to keep everyone too long, but I just want to have one last question, and I'll open it up for like an outro, like a pitch from the audience. But where do you see experimentation heading in the next year as you're going into next year? Like, what's your goals for the company? Is it to run more experiments? Is it to get more teams onboarded? Maybe some numbers there, or just like something that you wish your company did better, or something that you wish for a feature that Statsig would build out for you. Like that could also be possible.
Two things. One, a feature I wish Statsig would build for us is we have like a cloud model. We run very lean, and so we don't have a great data warehouse. Like we are sending data directly to Statsig, and so creating custom metrics is something that we frequently want to do, like more complicated metrics. But I guess our goal for our company, or my hope for the company in the next year or so, is truly democratizing experimentation. I think like we're getting to a really good spot, especially with our recent process changes. And I see like engineers slacking me about an experiment they want to run, or like they are the ones pushing like better experimentation design because they want to isolate the change. And even design is now like, I mean, they have been told to focus on data, and they are truly taking that to heart. Like they are coming up with really structured, broken down tests to test like their own design changes. And just scaling that to like every single engineer thinking like that would be awesome and takes the load off of our data science team.
So for us, the past year, 16 months-ish, Squarespace has been, Squarespace spent a long time onboarding onto Statsig. So, integration was pretty quick, but then rolling it out to our whole engineering org and every team took a long time. And we wanted to make sure that everyone was comfortable with the tool before they were like day before shipping a feature. And we were like, oh, no, you got to use the new thing. So we had everybody run an AA test after they had like completely onboarded themselves so that they knew what they were doing. And then by the time they got to an actual feature that they actually wanted to test, it wasn't a big deal. So we did that. And like completed our rollout like near the end of 2024. So 2025 has been our first year like totally on Statsig, and having also our first time having everybody in the company using the same experimentation platform, because we had a few from various different legacy reasons around the company before this. And that has been huge for our testing velocity. Squarespace did twice as many tests this year as it did the previous year. So I think, looking into the future, we are like wondering kind of what our new ceiling is going to be and how we're going to get there. But yeah.
Cool. In general, I think product velocity for the company is top of mind. I don't really think about experiments run as a metric in and of itself, but just whatever we can do to improve our velocity in shipping to users by, exposing as few users as we need to for as little amount of time and developing high confidence insights about what those effects are, and working with Statsig to figure out how to do that.
That's awesome. I think I gained a lot of insights today just speaking to all three of you on the panel, and I think it's true, like having all your different personas and all your data in one place, having a single source of truth, and being able to ship faster and smarter and better is what Statsig is known for. And I really want to thank Meera, Heather, and Andy for coming on stage with me and taking their time out of their day to talk to all of you and give you all these insights. So I guess the last remark I have here is like, after this, we're going to have a little bit more networking, but is there anything you want to say as like a parting note to the audience? Like, where can they find you? What can they talk to you about afterwards? Can they get some discounts and free trials?
I'm always open to hiring people. I'm Andy at Character.ai, so if you're in the market, shoot me a note.
If you need a website, Squarespace is an excellent platform. We also do have a lot of open analytics roles, though. So if you're listening, or if you are here and you are an analyst looking for a role, do reach out.
I'll follow suit. My email is Meera@mirage.app. Our office is also very close by to here, so if you came to this event, you probably can get to our office. We are also hiring a couple, data scientists, and many other roles. So yeah.
Awesome. So yeah, talk to them if you want a job. But also, big round of applause to them, and thank you everyone for coming.